All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're going to actually work on starting to solve these equations, and I want you to remember from last year that our goal, and please write this down, is to get the variable alone. And what we do, right, is we use inverse operations, right? We have to cancel certain things. Well, what we're going to build in this year is talking about the properties that let us do that. And we have 4 different properties. They're all properties of equality, right? Which means if I'm changing something, that it's not, everything's still going to stay equal. And I'm going to do these by example. So for example, right, I'm going to start with a number 1 for the first, and then I'm going to switch it to letters. So for example, right, if I know that 3 equals 3. Right? Hopefully that makes sense to you. Well, if I add the same thing to each side, so in other words, 3 plus 2 is the same as 3 plus 2. Right? So if I start with equals and I add the same thing, it's going to stay equal. To write that, right, if I have A equals B, then if I add another number, C, so A plus C equals B plus C. Right, that's all that we're saying, is I can add the same thing to things that are equal, it's going to stay equal. It works the same way for subtraction, right? I'm going to just not do the number, I'm going to go right to the letters. So if A equals B, then I can subtract A minus C, and that has to be the same as B minus C, because I'm taking the same thing away. Works for multiplication, right? If A equals B, then A times C has to be the same as B times C. And again, pick numbers and put them in there and see if it works. And guess what? It works the same thing for division. So if A is equal to B, then A divided by C is the same as B divided by C. All right, and we're going to use those a little bit more later on, but right now we're going to get into solving. So these are going to be all one step. So in order to do that, I have to cancel. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. This is all stuff we did in 7th grade. So I want to get G by itself. I have to cancel subtracting 9. To do that, I'm going to add 9, because those are opposites. Well, if this is equal, I have to keep it equal, right? I have to do this addition property. So I have to add 9 to both sides. Everything has to stay balanced. Excuse me. Negative 2 plus 9 is going to give me 7. So I'm saying 7 is equal to G. Well, what we're going to do then is we're also going to check this year. I know we didn't do a lot of this last year. And in order to check, you're going to start with your problem that was given. And it's like what we did yesterday where we saw, well, is this really a solution? So I'm going to put 7 in where I see G. Negative 2 equals 7 minus 9. And then I'm going to simplify that side. Well, 7 minus 9 truly is negative 2. And I know it might seem silly to have to do this for our pretty easy problems, but this way we're going to practice on the easy ones so that when they're bigger, it's not going to be so bad. All right, so I have m plus negative 14 equals negative 5. Well, I have to get rid of adding a negative, which is adding in a positive, and what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So the 14s cancel, and negative 5 plus 14 is 9. I'm going to do my check, and for the check, we start with our original problem. I'm just taking out the parentheses because we don't really need it. I'm going to put 9 in for m, and then I'm going to see 9 plus negative 14 truly is negative 5. Now here's what happens. You guys do these checks and you get it that it doesn't match. If it doesn't match, it means you did something wrong. You need to go back and look. Did I do the check wrong or did I do the solving wrong? All right, number 3. Here I have one where it's being multiplied. And yes, you're allowed to use calculators. So in order to cancel a multiplication, I have to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 0.7. Well, 4.9 divided by 0.7 is 7. So now I'm going to do my check. Right, I keep flipping colors so you can see the difference here. Start with your original. You're going to fill in what we think t is, 7, and I want you to actually check it on your calculators. But 4.9 does equal 4.9, it checks. All right, here's one where we have another multiplication, so I'm going to have to divide by negative 4.5. I'm sorry, 0.45. Sorry about that. So n, right, a positive divided by a negative, I know is going to be a negative. And when I did 3.15 divided by 0.45, you get 7, and it's negative. Right, so for my check, I start with my original, negative 0.45n equals 3.15, negative 0.45 times negative 7, oops, equals 3.15, 3.15 equals 3.15. All right, I'm going to skip number 5 for now. I might have you do that later, I'll see. But I want to go over here to number 6. So here I have a fraction. We have calculators that let us do fractions. So please do not get intimidated by these. This is a multiplication, 1.5 times s. So I'm going to divide by 1.5. And again, if I do that on my calculator, I'm going to get 11. I'm going to do the check. 1.5s equals 16.5. 1.5 times 11. And I'm going to definitely check that on my calculator. I'm not going to just assume that those are equal to each other. Okay, let's try number 7. So here, if you see minus and negative, you want to do your leave, change before you do anything else. So I have x plus 1 7/8, so I have to subtract 1 7/8. Again, do not let the fractions intimidate you when you have a calculator. But that is going to give me 2 2/5 in lowest terms. All right, so do your check. X minus a negative 1 7/8 equals 4.5. So 2 2/5 minus 1 7/8. And again, put it in your calculators. Right, so it checks. I want to do number 9. Because this is our first division that we have here. So for number 9, I have negative a divided by 5. So that means I have to multiply both sides by 5. But I also have to multiply by the negative, because I need it to be a positive a all by itself. So you're really multiplying by negative 5. So that's going to give me a. 12 times negative 5 is negative 60. So when I do the check for this one, negative a over 5 equals 12. So I'm going to have negative 60 divided by 5 equals 12. Well, the negative of a negative is a positive, so 60 divided by 5 is truly 12. All right, so what I want you guys to do, we're going to do number 11 together in class, but what I want you to do is I want you to do numbers 5, 8, and number 10. So you have to try those on your own, and we're going to check them together in class tomorrow. All right, any questions? The only new part here is the check, which some of you might have done with Mr. Bush. But any questions, bring them to class, and have a good night.